Hi, I'm Dana Miles, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this magical journey. Now we'll be talking about our second topic, unlocking the magic potential in deaf and hard of hearing children. You'll be joining me as I interview with an amazing person who works for the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Youth, or CDHY, an outreach agency here in Vancouver, Washington, serving deaf and hard of hearing children statewide. The agency also works with Washington School for the Deaf, WSD, where I work. So I'm excited to introduce you to Treacy. Hello, Treacy.
Hello.
I'm really thrilled to have you here. I know you work for the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Youth, CDHY. And I wanted you to be here because I want to talk about language access and why that's so important for deaf and hard of hearing children. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you so you can tell us a bit about yourself. My first question to you is, can you tell me about yourself? What was your upbringing like?
Okay. First, I'd like to say that it's an honor to be here to discuss these important topics. I grew up in a hearing family, and I moved around to different states, but I mostly grew up in Arkansas. So my parents are hearing, and I was born deaf, but they didn't realize that until I was 9 months old. My parents weren't sure what to do when they got the news, and of course, they grieved when they found out. Since this was back in the day, they opened up the phone book and flipped through looking for the word deaf. They found the Arkansas School for the Deaf and a counselor's name, made the call, and went from there. Then they started taking ASL classes, and my mom even ended up working at the school. This helped me thrive with that language access. We were in the Parent-Infant Program, PIP, at Arkansas School for the Deaf, where I ended up going until 6th grade. After that, I switched into mainstream schooling, so I carry both of those experiences with me. My parents were really motivated to learn ASL because they told me long ago that they needed to know how to communicate that they love me. They couldn't do that without a shared language, so it was important to them. That's touching to me.
How did your parents decide on learning ASL instead of using speech with you? That option is pretty popular with many families, so what led them to deciding ASL was the best language choice to use with you?
My parents really sat down and chatted with many people, not just one person. That was a huge key. They did their research and met with others to see what could and couldn't be done. Most of the people they met with said that ASL was the best way to go. It's the foolproof approach, you know? Speech training is a years-long process.
Great. I'm happy your parents made the decision to sign with you. Now I'd like you to tell me more about your current job with CDHY. What are some things you do at this agency?
So I work for CDHY, which is connected with WSD. I've worked in both places for 12 years now. And I work for the outreach team. I travel around Washington State to support deaf and hard of hearing children who are in mainstream settings and programs. Mainstreamed students do struggle because their teachers don't have the best tools to support them. So we make sure that there are interpreters and that access is there for those students. We navigate their language level and we make sure their IEP goals are being met. We train and provide professional development for teachers and staff.
This means that anyone in Washington State who needs support or resources should reach out to you at CDHY, right?
Yes, definitely reach out to us.
Perfect. Very nice. Okay, so now I'd like to talk to you about language access when we talk about unlocking the magic potential of deaf and hard of hearing children. The first question I'd like to ask is, can you explain language deprivation? What does that mean, and why is it such an important discussion?
It's important because it's something many deaf and hard of hearing children face. Language deprivation means an individual is being deprived of full access to any natural language. There's a really crucial window of time from birth to age 5. This is the point in time where a child's brain is like a sponge, acquiring many different things, whether visually, auditorily, and so on. This is the primary window when they're neurologically tuned to language acquisition. Beyond that age, it becomes much more of a struggle. Wyatt C. Hall conducted research on language deprivation in 2017, where he discussed the long-term consequences of deaf and hard of hearing children who have been deprived of language. It really did alter their brains. Exposure to full access to language has a big influence on brain development. And language development doesn't always have to be auditory. Not at all. It can be visual. There was research done at Gallaudet University from Dr. Laura Ann Petito, where they used an FNIRS machine to measure blood flow and oxygen to the brain. They noted that activity occurred in the same areas of the brain regardless of auditory or signed language use.
That's fascinating. A lot of people do think that language is only auditorily based, but that's not the case at all. We can have access to language in different ways, including our hands. I think a lot of people don't realize that, so thank you for sharing that. Now, could you explain a bit more about the impact this all has on deaf children?
Wow, those impacts are far-reaching. It impacts their social development, their perception, their ability to empathize, communicate, share their needs and wants, share their feelings, problem solving, academic learning, critical thinking, their cognitive development, their ability to think abstractly and identify with peers. By the age of 5, a child's brain is already 90% developed. Most deaf children who enter kindergarten are simply not ready to learn. So, wow, it really has a large impact that delays them long term. This is the result of deaf children not being provided with access to language development early on. By 18 years old, many remain at a 3rd or 4th grade writing level. And only 6% of deaf children score as proficient in English. 51% fall below average.
I don't think a lot of people realize the long-term impact of this. Some people can still find success and thrive despite it, but most struggle, and it is a serious issue. I'm glad you brought that up. For my third question, I'm curious to get your perspective on why this is still happening. We've identified language deprivation as this very serious problem, so why is it still happening now to this day?
That's a wonderful question. I think it's rooted in the discrimination and misconceptions surrounding deaf and hard of hearing people. We can think, learn, we're capable of anything, yet this continues. When a hearing person meets a deaf person for the first time, they're just lost. And this can be because of a lack of education, training, and experience. They need to be guided toward our community and culture. And another thing, people just aren't curious enough. I was recently chatting with a good friend of mine while camping, and they said people won't grow if they aren't curious enough. That's a poignant message, and it's correct. People need to ask questions and let their curiosity lead them. Don't be afraid to jump in and learn something new. It's all right to learn something new every day, right? My tip would be to ask yourselves what you consider to be normal to you. Norms typically align with the majority of people. So in this case, hearing people. What about us? It was I. King Jordan who famously said during the 1988 Deaf President Now movement that we deaf people can do anything except hear.
That's right. I love your answer because, wow, it really impacted and touched me. My message through my platform as I've been traveling has always been 3 statements, or rather topics of discussion. The first is to affirm. So like you mentioned, that concept of normalcy, a lot of people have this vision of what normal looks like to them, but really it's our differences, specifically our deafness, that we must normalize. That's the first important message that I've been promoting. And the second message that I love to promote is to be curious. It's important to be curious. And in light of those curiosities, ask questions. Ask what works. So I love that you hit the nail on the head for those 2 topics. I'll mention my third message too. I talk about advocacy. That's been a large part of my presentations, how to advocate for us and what that can look like. So thank you for hitting on that. It aligns with my message too. Now I'm curious to get your take on cochlear implants and hearing aids. And what does that look like in terms of access to language? Does it truly make language accessible? What do you think?
Cochlear implants are a tool, but not a language. A tool is something that helps a deaf and hard of hearing person get access to a language. Keep in mind that at the end of the day, when the cochlear implants are off, that person is still deaf.
Right.
ASL is the most foolproof approach to access to language. And it's best to have something to fall back on.
I agree. I believe that a child will communicate what works for them as they grow up. They'll be able to discern if the cochlear implant is working for them or if they prefer signing or both. I agree that it's important to have both in that case, with signing as the key, for sure. Okay. So we know cochlear implants and hearing aids are just tools. So how can deaf children really have access to language, and what does that look like?
There's a lot of research out there that shows that 90 to 96% of deaf and hard of hearing children are born to hearing parents. And that's where we have to start. Parents are their child's first teacher, and you teach by giving access to language. Parents can take ASL classes, and this isn't to say that their ASL has to be perfect and developing at the same rate as their child. Anything is better than nothing. Taking ASL classes starting when your child is born will take you very far. Language access also looks like bringing in a deaf mentor, bringing them to deaf events, and immersing yourself in those deaf events and the deaf community. Provide your child with a deaf role model that they can look up to and relate to. That's really important.
Yeah. Oftentimes, parents will feel intimidated that ASL is too hard to learn, but you'll be learning with your child. You can learn together. It's really about giving them access. Don't worry about perfection. It's more about that communication with your child, like you mentioned, for parents to be able to communicate love to their kids. Wow. It's so important for you both to have access to each other, especially through sign language. I want to ask you how this topic of language deprivation impacts you as a deaf person.
Now, as an adult, I work with deaf and hard of hearing children. And it's disheartening seeing how their lack of language access impacts all areas of their lives. It's heartbreaking. I want to be able to share what I know with them, to continue generations of successful deaf people from here on out.
And I'd like to share a little bit about that as a deaf teacher myself. I teach deaf children, and I often find myself thinking if only my students had language access at birth, they would be so much further ahead. They would be able to do so much more. And I also used to work as an employment consultant, helping deaf people find jobs. I came to the realization that the more language you have, the more opportunities you have. So, yeah, I agree. It is super important. And it impacts me too as a deaf person. Thank you for sharing. So now I'm curious, if you don't mind getting a bit more personal, let's talk about you as a deaf person. What do you think really helped you become a successful person? Because you clearly are. You work for CDHY, you have a master's degree. So what helped you succeed?
Well, it was my access to language, with my access to ASL. It created a strong deaf identity for me. I was able to develop resilience. I had a few deaf role models in my life, and they were really a key for me as well. I was positioned to have that help and support as I navigated the hearing world. With my deaf identity, I know how to advocate for myself and my needs. Developing resilience means that if a problem arises for me, like if an accommodation is refused, I can think creatively on how to solve that problem and jump in with a solution. That was something a deaf role model gave to me, so I know what it would look like and what I can do. That person's successes inspired my own.
That's beautiful, yes. You mentioned your strong sense of identity, and I think a lot of the time, many people don't realize the importance of that, but it really is important because that's what gives us the confidence to thrive. Being able to identify that I'm proud to be deaf, and I can work anything out from there. And I agree, it does start with language access, which then ties into that sense of identity. Yes, that's beautiful. So now let's shift to politics. Is there legislation in place to ensure that all deaf children are protected from language deprivation?
Yes. It started in 2015. There was a big movement called Lead K in California. Lead K stands for Language Equality and Acquisition for Deaf Kids. It's created a nationwide ripple effect, and currently it's been passed in 22 different states. Lead K promotes language access starting at birth by putting accountability onto organizations like the Department of Public Health, and the Office of Public Instruction, and others along those lines. Lead K puts accountability into their hands to assess a child's expressive and receptive abilities. Maybe a child leans toward auditory, maybe they're visual, maybe it's a mix of both. As for here in Washington State, the fight has been slow but steady.
Thank you. Yep, I agree. I hope Washington State can implement something like this to support deaf children. It's important for parents to know that deaf children are at risk for language deprivation and what they should do as a result. Okay, I'm just about ready to wrap up. The theme of this mini-series is magic and embracing deaf schools. I always compare this school to a magical place, and I love Harry Potter, of course. So now I'd like to turn it over to you. This is more of a fun question. If you had magical abilities, what would you change in the system for deaf and hard of hearing children?
That's a big question. In terms of change and things we could change in general, I think it goes back to legislature and funding. I would love to sit with as many people as I could to have a dialogue on how to create a better quality of life for deaf and hard of hearing children by way of language access. I would love to share my language and my culture so more people are aware and could ultimately better understand us.
Beautiful. That is magic, isn't it? I have goosebumps. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. I know those watching will have learned something new from you. Remember, viewers, you can contact Drew, right?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed this discussion I had with Drew. As you can see, these topics are heavy and sometimes controversial in the deaf community, but they need to be addressed. Sign language is currently the one and only visual guarantee for access to language. There are many other tools, and we have some deaf and hard of hearing children who do succeed without sign language, so I want to acknowledge that. But I think in terms of giving children access to language, it's important to start with something that's 100% accessible. Right now, sign language is that 100% access. I hope this gives you something to think about. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.